when two people can agree on something,
It shall be done.
it'll happen twice as fast. So it was a very divine thing for us. And again, we just kind of went head first. Didn't really think, didn't even really look back. And because we didn't have a business plan, like I was treating patients at 11 p.m. at night.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things you hear all the time where they call it like accidental entrepreneurship. We didn't go out and plan, okay, let's do this in 6 to 12 months. It was really like a whirlwind. So I was doing real estate at that time. So I was already ready to branch out my own to do a business fashion related. But then when we met, within 3 months, I said, okay, why don't we do this?
I'm Brandon Reed, and you're listening to Ready, Set, Startup, a podcast that brings you industry-tested perspectives from leaders working in all areas of the startup lifecycle, so you can learn from the wisdom that they've gained over years in their fields of expertise and apply it in your own entrepreneurial journeys. Let's get into it. On today's show, I'm talking with Marc and Gina Calaunan, co-founders of Healing Hands. Marc and Gina have such a unique and powerful story. I think that most entrepreneurs you talk to would tell you that they can't imagine starting a company with their spouse. Life partners and business partners are two very different things. And what makes one partnership work isn't always what will be best for the other. Well, Marc and Gina decided they'd not only go into business together, but that they'd do it while also getting married and starting a family. Well, they've managed to not only pull it off, but thrive as a result of it. They are force multipliers for one another, which you'll immediately be able to sense when you hear their interview. Gina handles the business, and Marc handles patient care. Together, they have grown Healing Hands to 8 locations with plans to continue growing throughout Asia. They are an incredible testament to the power of aligned vision, shared goals, and the importance of keeping your customers, in their case, patients, at the absolute center of every decision you make. Build a quality product. Genuinely care about the people you're serving, and you'll see your business bear the fruit of that. The road has not come without challenges, and Marc and Gina lay out some of the obstacles that they've had to endure along the way. This entire episode is full of hard-earned wisdom that any entrepreneur can take and apply in their own lives and businesses. Let's first go back to their early days, when their relationship was as new as the business, and as they put it, there was more passion than there were plans.
Our path to entrepreneurship was, we didn't really think about, what we needed to do, in terms of creating a business plan or anything like that. It was just sheer passion. And me and Gina, we just met at the time, less than 6 months into it. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. And
3 months, actually.
3 months, yeah. So
Oh, my
less
goodness.
than 6 months. Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's we were excited to be together, our future together, even at that little time. And when she mentioned that, we should go branch out on our own, start doing our own thing. And the first thing I told her, I remember this line, I said, that would be awesome because when two people can agree on something,
It shall be done.
It'll happen twice as fast. So it was a very divine thing for us. And again, we just kind of went head first. Didn't really think, didn't even really look back. And because we didn't have a business plan, I was treating patients at 11 p.m. at night.
Oh, wow.
People would just, they would fly in from their business trip. Hey, I'm achy, I'm in pain. Marc, can you see me in 30 minutes?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things you hear all the time where they call it accidental entrepreneurship. We didn't go out and plan, okay, let's do this in 6 to 12 months. It was really like a whirlwind. We met within 3 months. I was his patient. He was practicing at a friend's clinic, but it wasn't really the kind of practice that he envisioned himself in, and it wasn't the level of care for patient wasn't quite up to our standard. So I was doing real estate at that time. So I was already ready to branch out my own to do a business fashion related. But then when we met, within 3 months, I said, okay, why don't we do this? I think he's very gifted in what he does. That's why the name Healing Hands. And then we just decided to do this in 3 months, and we got married in that 3 months as well.
Yeah.
And we didn't have time to come up with a business plan. We just dive straight in. And I think one of the glue that kept us together throughout the time was our faith. Yeah.
Brandon, I want to clarify. She wasn't my patient. She was my boss's patient. And
I got transferred to him.
Yeah. So,
Nice.
but after we, confirmed the relationship, she fired me as her doctor. So.
Nice. That's great. Man, you guys were hitting it all. It was like, you're never supposed to do more than 2 of those big life events at once, but you were just doing them all. You were starting a relationship, getting married, starting a business, leaving your old jobs. Like you were just doing it all at once. That's crazy.
And then throw in the kids like a year later.
Whew. Wow. Wow. That's crazy. So how many years ago was that? What year was that all this was going on?
It's very clear. I think it's 2010. It was, we officially started in April.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And one milestone, Brenda, I just want to add, a week before we were supposed to start, my mother passed on. And I couldn't go back and see her because there was so much commotion. And
she was back in Vegas. She was back in the US, and he's in Singapore.
Yeah. So it was a huge burden, but we just had to keep going, and we had to sacrifice.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah,
There's
I never even got to meet her in person.
Wow.
Yeah, we only met on back then. There was no Zoom. It was Skype.
Maybe Skype.
I still remember your Skype. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So when you guys were deciding to jump out and do that, and Gina, you mentioned accidental entrepreneurship, and I know what you're saying, because you guys were like, hey, you didn't have this grand, 3-year projections and cash flow analysis, but you guys were just going and doing it. But it wasn't accidental, and this was very intentional. You guys knew what you wanted. Maybe you didn't know all the steps to get there, but you guys were taking very intentional decisions to leave what you were doing, start this new thing, and that's super admirable and impressive, and takes a lot of courage. Now, as you guys were doing that, did you guys have any other business partner? Anybody else knowing any other part of the business, or was it just you two there at the beginning?
It was literally just us two, and I've never even worked for anybody really in like a full-time job before. I was always kind of freelancing, and we didn't know anything, and I didn't know operations, marketing, finance, accounting, but you just took it on.
Yeah. So when you guys were doing that and you were taking it all on and learning all these areas of the business, I want to hear from each of you of this on this perspective of, was entrepreneurship in the startup world and doing your own thing, owning your own business, like you thought it would be, or were there misconceptions, and what fell short? What exceeded your expectations?
Yeah. So looking back, and for me, I going in head first. I was a second, going on my 3rd year in practice, and I tell you, coming to Singapore, I did a lot of personal development. I was so excited. But then the moment we started business, I was, okay, so what do? Do we, do we advertise? Do we market?
Yeah, so many ways you can start.
Yeah. And I didn't even think about even the money, the capital that we needed. But when we started, I really was just so focused on what I wanted to do in terms of giving to all the, everyone that came through the door, and providing that level of service to make sure to build that relationship with them. And, 10 plus years after to now, it's actually paying a lot of dividends, where these relationships has blossomed. And it has, through referrals, through, networks. Yeah. So for me, when we went in, I really was I felt like looking back, it was just a dream. But I was riding on passion and belief in what I was, with myself and in my relationship with my wife, Gina.
Yeah. I think for me personally, because I didn't have any expectation on what it's going to be like, running a startup and
That's
stuff.
That's one way to exceed your expectations. Have none.
Yeah, I know, right? So now that I know, and then we are starting multiple businesses, it's looking back, we're wow, how did we even get through that?
Yeah.
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 And
for sure.
navigating, the marriage and everything, like
Yeah,
so many
for
things
sure.
at the same time.
Yeah.
Learning each
Yeah.
other as spouses and learning each other as business partners, those are two very different things. That's fascinating. So as you guys were getting started, you had mentioned at one point, Mark, the capital to get started, and like you weren't necessarily thinking of that. And I think that's also, I wrote that down. I think it's a really important thing. It's hard to say a blanket statement over any set of anything in entrepreneurship, anything across any multiple founder, because every business is different, every person is different. But I think there's a general rule of thumb that if you can start with the product or start with the service and start with the quality of it, that in general you can build from there. Like that's the foundation to build on, especially as you look towards the future. And like you said, it starts paying dividends. And I think that's a really good lesson. Now, as you guys were getting started, though, how were you funding the business? Yes, you might not have been thinking of that and just saying we just need to make the best, your version of a product as we can, but still, like you had to be paying yourselves, had to eat. So how'd you do that to begin with?
I think this one I'm going to start with because this is where my wife is such a blessing because I really went into it, like I said, head first, and I didn't have much savings. And I spent my money on the ring that I bought her. And after that, I really have nothing to show for. And at the time, I didn't, because I didn't really think much about it. We didn't share the information in terms of how much she has, how much I had. And she just kind of took everything head on. And she still does to this day where, when she's my financial officer and she paid my debts. She covered the rent. And I
Great.
think she handled the payroll. So I didn't even look at a paycheck because she handled everything and she was phenomenal about it. Yeah. So I think in hindsight, having for me, it safeguarded me to focus on the quality, the detail.
Totally.
Yeah.
It
While she
allowed you to
took care of
focus on
that.
that. And Gina,
Yeah.
so that was just
Yeah.
savings? Like at that point to start the business, you were just...
like I mentioned, because before that I was already going to branch out on my own
Sure.
my own journey
That makes sense.
into the fashion business. So I already had a nest egg. I was doing quite fairly well in real estate for many years, but it became very sordid, the sort of career. I didn't feel any passion anymore, and it was literally just wheeling and dealing, and I didn't feel that was my purpose in life. Yeah, so where I decided to just put everything and fund this. And the thing is, we didn't even draw a salary for about maybe close to a year because I wanted to just keep reinvesting into the business. Yeah, I mean, we actually broke even in 6 months, but I wanted to invest in, when we did make a profit, we invested in branding, we invested in better equipment and stuff. So I think one thing I wanted to share was that when we decided to start, it's like almost like, what they say, like the universe conspires to help you. So everyone in our community was just like pitching in.
Cool.
And then I had clients in real estate who were just literally donating like all kinds of furniture for our practice.
Wow, cool.
And then even his ex practice that he was practicing at was selling us equipments that were fairly new, but at a heavily discounted rate. And they even let us pay in installments over a year. So just
Cool.
Everything just kind of happened,
Neat.
So that is why even without like thinking too much about the funding, everything just kind of fell into place.
Sure, yeah. No, and I want to hear more about kind of how you did, because you're making the money, you're not necessarily taking a salary, you're reinvesting those things early in the business. What Mark, you had mentioned earlier that like, there's so many things you can do in your starting business. Maybe you're learning about the things, maybe you're in seminars, maybe you're taking classes, and you're like, oh yeah, these are so exciting, I could sink my teeth into each of these things. But when the rubber meets the road, you have your own company, and it's like, okay, but actually, where do I start? Like, which of these things makes sense to invest time or money, effort into, resources? So what were you guys doing early on? What did that reinvestment look like? How did you build the business early? Was it all marketing? Was it some marketing, some of this? So were you bringing people on immediately? What did that look like?
Yeah, so in the beginning, so far, I mean, from day one till now, I've been the one doing the marketing. But to build our seed, that very first seed group of patients was from his previous practice. They kind of knew that we were starting our own, and then they followed him. And then through my friends and family as well, because he was new in Singapore. He was only here for like 6 months at that point in time when we started. So he didn't really have a community here. So that's really how we started. And obviously it's not going to be enough to feed us long term, but the referrals kept coming. But then we realized that, okay, we need to do some form of marketing when we started hiring our first associate, because we grew quite quickly. In our second year, we opened up a second practice and started hiring already. So in order to feed our associates, our very first marketing strategy, I still remember, because it was no money down. It was back then. It was called Groupon. I don't think they're still
Groupon.
around. Groupon,
Yep,
yeah,
totally.
But it was Singapore version of Groupon, and then they bought over the Singapore version. Yeah, so we were the only ones that were doing that.
Cool.
Back then, as for chiropractic, nobody was. It was mostly like F&B and stuff.
Sure.
And then that brought in like a couple of hundred patients, actually, new patients.
Oh my goodness! Wow. Awesome.
Yeah, a couple of hundred, and then from there, literally just like started snowballing. Yeah, and then eventually we also ventured into like event space, like road shows, and then ultimately into like corporate events when our patients started linking us up to their companies.
Oh, cool. Let's talk about that moment that you said, all right, so you guys were growing pretty quickly, pretty early, and you brought in associates to scale and to open multiple locations. That is such a pivotal moment that I've found as I've been, learning this space, interviewing entrepreneurs. This moment seems to be so pivotal. And so I like to press double click into it of, all right, you have some traction. You have, whatever it looks like in your industry to have product market fit, right? You have some early customers, things are looking good. All right, I can't do this alone. And that's a really scary moment, because all of a sudden it's not only your mouth to feed, and it's not only your there's more responsibility outside of yourself. How did you, and I always ask the question whenever I have the chance to, of like, how did you know your business was ready for that? And then how did you get the confidence and the courage to take that step? I think a lot of founders, especially listening as they're early on, are at that point, that fork in the road. And they're like, man, I know I can't do all this myself, and I'm the bottleneck in my business, but bringing somebody else in is a whole new game. How do you find the courage and the confidence to take that step?
For us, number one, you have to be very honest with yourself to be able to say that that you could potentially be the bottleneck. That takes a lot of courage, because this is your baby, this is your creation. So, speaking from our standpoint, number one, that part of that journey will come in stages. It's like when it comes once, it will hit you. But I assure you, because we've been in this for close to 15 years already, it's going to come again. So to me, what we did was we always kind of went back to each other, look, and just say, hey, look, we need to go back to our fundamentals, meaning look at our core values. And how does, bringing in someone, how did they fit in those core values? Like attention to detail. We always talk about trust, integrity. I think those words are pretty much always on the core values, but how do we create that with a strategic partner or employees, So we have to define that and how that looks to us. And oftentimes when the one thing I notice is that when I'm talking to people or I'm talking to these employees, is that I'm expecting that, and I'm using my own barometer to determine that in them. But they have their own definition of that, and they have different actions in terms of how to show it. Yeah. So I think, when you start bringing in somebody, literally this person, an employee, you're bringing them into your shop, your HQ, your ways of doing business, and that's a huge step. And what we did was, I think, and we're constantly still doing it. We're still adjusting, where we're looking at the values that we want in the company and looking for those people, number one, will complement us, that will, support us in our journey and purpose towards where we want the company to go.
Yeah, but I think I want to add on, it was really, like you said, Brendan, it's really pivotal.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, all that profit that you made is channeled towards the new rent, the new staff, and then with every chiro, we need to bring on clinic assistants as well. All of a sudden, there's this huge learning curve that we were not prepared at all. Like
Yeah.
we didn't know what values to look for when we were hiring. But at
Right.
that time, we haven't even identified our core values. We were
Sure.
practicing it, but we didn't put it
Yeah.
on paper.
Didn't know how to
We didn't have
articulate
like
it. Yeah.
a HR handbook or anything, like what compensation and benefits, Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was tough. Yeah. I mean, it took a few kissing of the frogs to find the real prince sometimes. Yeah.
Totally, absolutely. And like you said, there's that's one other thing I didn't touch on, but you're totally right that like that moment of bringing people on, it's hard because all of a sudden the slice of the pie gets smaller for you. It's like, oh man, we needed all this both to live and then to reinvest, and all of a sudden, everybody just gets a smaller slice, and that can be really nerve-wracking. How did you tell me about the chiropractic like landscape in Singapore at the time? That's super unique. Most of my listeners are in the United States. They probably don't know how did you differentiate yourself from what else people were offering there, or was there nobody else offering what you were offering? What'd that look like?
Yeah, so back then, it was very interesting. It was a much smaller space compared to now, but there were like two main bigger practices around, and the rest were just like one-man shows. And I would say we were quite different from the get-go because everyone was kind of practicing from this sort of SOP where it's called weightless practice. I think it was created like in the US. They were selling this sort of model. It was a set model and everybody was kind of following because it's very profitable. But that was not how Marc practiced in the US. It was quite different. It was a lot more personalized and he spent more time with the patients, and it was a more holistic approach. So we just continued practicing this way, and I mean the patients were responding really well because we had patients coming from other places and stuff, and so when they came here, they were the ones that sort of identify our values. They were like, oh, you really educate like your patients. Like nobody has, or even my GP has never told me this and this about my body and stuff. It's like you really spend time in educating, and I think the personalization of our programs, the education was really what set us apart.
Yeah, that's really neat. And that's, one of my other next questions was like, how did you make yourself defensible from your competitors? And that's really the same answer. What a neat thing that you were doing, you were taking a different approach because there was this unique situation where everybody was pretty much practicing the same type of, curriculum, for lack of a better word. They were all going about it this way. You went about it a different way. That way resonated, worked, and helped people. And so then that was baked in differentiation. You were doing things different and it was working and helping. So that's really neat. What was one big bet you can remember early on in that growth? I'm kind of still in this growth phase. You guys it's early, you're building, you're growing. What's one big bet that you took and what gave you the confidence to take that risk? Did it pay off? Did it not? What'd you learn?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest bet was when we wanted to open up our fourth branch, and then Marc always had this vision of having this integrated care center whereby we want to bring in physiotherapists as well. So we're like, oh, that's a great idea. It's been done in the US, and it's like it really works for the patient, like the rehab portion after adjustment and stuff. So we didn't really think too much about it. But then we realized we need a huge space to house all these different equipments, and then we needed so many different equipments that end up we were spending 6 figures on the equipments. This like twice the space that we were used to, so huge rents. I mean, if anyone knows Singapore, rent in Singapore is crazy. So we invested a lot in that, but then we didn't realize that it was so hard to hire a physiotherapist because they were so sought after, and after graduation, they are bonded with a hospital for 2 to 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And every year, yeah. So we even approached. There's only one school in Singapore too that was offering that diploma.
Oh,
So
wow.
we even contacted the head of the department, had a meeting with the guy, and then he was telling us, "Oh man, like our cohort is getting smaller and smaller every year.
Yeah.
We are competing with the big hospitals," and we realized, oh damn, like we couldn't.
Yeah.
We had everything
Crazy.
ready, we couldn't find a person.
Wow.
So that was a very painful lesson, and then we finally found one, but then because she was from a hospital setting, so coming into private practice, it was very, very different. She couldn't
I'm sure.
adjust and stuff. Yeah, and then we finally, after a year, we're like, okay, let's just forget about it. Let's stick to straight
Mm.
chiropractic for that clinic. So it was painful and expensive lesson. We had the
Yeah.
equipment sitting around 6 figures of equipment, and we couldn't do
Wow.
anything. Yeah, we
Wow.
ended up moving out that space, I think 4 years later, because they were redoing the building, and we donated a lot of the equipments like to the church. Yeah, the community centers and stuff.
Yeah, that is a big bet. Wow. And there's a lot of lessons in there for sure. That's very interesting. What a unique challenge to navigate of like, there's not very many people graduating this degree. When they do, they're tied to, another organization. So, wow, that's really interesting. Out of curiosity, how did you, or have you kind of readdressed that thought of like, how do we care more holistically, just not even just chiropractic, but outside of that? Have you gone back to that and made any progress there? Or is it just chiropractic now you guys are focused on?
Yeah. So actually, we're in the midst of that, and yeah. So the bottleneck was actually for regulation reasons here in Singapore, but as we go into regionally, the holistic approach that we did in the beginning is actually what do you call this? Is playing into what the patients are demanding now and what their needs are. Yeah, because patients are now asking less of a reactive care and more of a proactive care. So now we're moving more into chiropractic, but we're gonna do our stretch therapy. We're looking to expand into doing other modalities in terms of treatment, where it's osteopath. So it's really like we're really looking forward to going into that, because it's going to provide a lot of more avenues for patients to choose and also to improve their health from a holistic standpoint. So yeah, it's
works in progress. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is, because regionally in Southeast Asia, we're really primed for that, in that position with our brand to be able to expand to that. Yeah.
Neat. Awesome. Yeah, sounds like a lot of opportunity there, and potentially good learnings you can take from your previous kind of foray outside of chiropractic and how you apply that now. Very interesting. So can you guys, we kind of walked through, all right, you guys have established the company. There's some traction. You guys are growing into multiple locations. Past then, there's this period of scaling. Now, first, how many locations do you guys have now? What have you grown to?
Currently, we have 8.
Okay. Yep. So you guys were like continuing to grow, continue to scale, perhaps, creating these core values, these standards of business that you guys were then replicating across. As you're doing that and you're scaling, what were some pivotal moments along that journey that you had to take to get your company from one level to the next? And then how did you ensure that you could, when those opportunities presented themselves or when you went and got them, that your company, that your people, that your processes were ready for that growth?
Yeah, I think the hardest was when where we reached 4 clinics. We were stuck there for like 2 years, almost 3. And then I realized it's not unique to us. Like many other businesses,
Oh, interesting. There's this
the
specific
same thing.
size that is hard to. Interesting.
Correct. Because we were able to manage on our own for the first 3, and then all of a sudden when it reaches 4, it's just that magic number.
Yeah.
And now suddenly, I need an accountant, I need an operations person, I need marketing. Yeah, I need so many, managers, clinic managers and stuff. So then the cost started piling up. So you are kind of forced to scale after that, because if you don't, and then the cost is sort of like spread between only 3 to 4 clinics versus say 8, 10. Yeah. But being new and hiring the people at HQ, it was just managing so many people at one go. It was very tough, and the selection process as well. So once we're able to get over that hurdle, then the scaling part after that was a lot smoother and easier. But COVID also played a big part. I think that was a huge pivotal moment as well, because we were not considered primary care in Singapore. So we were forced to close. So we had to close for a couple of months while 6-figure salary was still going out. Every month we had zero income. But we pressed on, and after that, once we reopened, there was a huge breakthrough because people started valuing their health a lot more.
Totally.
After COVID,
People
before
working on
COVID,
their
everyone,
couches, on their laptops. Just
exactly. Yeah. And back then, before that, people were valuing like their money, their business, their work a lot more. And then all of a sudden, you're hearing like, deaths and stuff.
That makes sense.
People's perspective started to shift. Like they were caring about their health a lot more as well. It wasn't just about chasing after the dollar. So the patients started coming back like fast and furious, and it was a growth really started from there.
You said something. You said so that you were at that like 4 clinic threshold, and you had to get over that hurdle. And when you did, things were easier. Walk me through that process of getting over that hurdle. What did that take? What did that entail? How did you identify the things that needed to happen? How did you execute on them?
Yeah, for us, I think there was a lot of late nights, and I think that's when we experienced a bit of a turmoil between us and our marriage, because like we're business partners, but when we looked at it, like Gina mentioned, from operations and the financial part, I think the adjustment in terms of, number one, being able to manage a lot more people, and the potential to, okay, we need to grow. We know that to go over this, but the potential, or the PTSD, I call it, where we will have to bring in more people, more personalities. So I think that turning point was like, we were kind of like, okay, you know what? I mean, we started to look at things like, I think we're okay, but deep inside, where we need to grow. So again, it was an internal thing, at least for me, to where like, do we really want to go through this, because once we get there, it's nothing but, there's nothing but to keep going from the 5th to the 6th clinic. So to me, mentally, that was a very pivotal thing, because once you get there, now all of a sudden, okay, the training, it has to be on paper, our processes, everything like that, it has to be documented so that you can become somewhat legit rather than mom and pop.
And then there's the quality control as well. How do you
Quality
spread
control.
yourself among like 4, 7, 8 clinics to ensure everybody is, up to standard, practicing the same way, fulfilling the brand promise that we put out? So it was tough. I mean, it's no walk in the park. Every night we are flip-flopping as well. But of course, the team cannot see our flip-flopping. But there's times when, maybe we should do this. And then tomorrow we wake up, we want to do something else. Like, And
doubting
then
yourself,
like,
questioning yourself. But then to the team, you have to speak very confidently about the direction you're going.
Exactly.
And so it sounds like it sounds almost like you knew the steps ahead of you. So you were at 4, and it wasn't like, oh my gosh, how do we get beyond this? How do we scale past this? It's, you knew the steps, but you just knew that there was really, once you started growing, like you were saying, Mark, it's 5, then 6, then 7, and are we ready for that continued growth? Yeah, that's interesting. So this segues really well into my next question. We started talking about quality control, started talking about making sure that you were fulfilling on your brand promise, not damaging your brand for 3-6 months before you even knew, like, oh my gosh, this clinic is not even doing, was not up to our standards. As you grew, as you scaled, this is something that a lot of founders face, I think, early as they do that process and they cross that hurdle, whatever that looks like for them in their business. How did you maintain those things? How did you take the initial vision you had, the culture you had set out, the standard of practice that you had put in place? How did you maintain that? What did you do to ensure that quality standard stayed as high as you wanted as you grew?
I think it's continuous, like works in progress. Obviously, having that SOP was important, and getting that core team together is very important as well, and getting everyone on the same page in terms of like culture. And we're dealing with professionals as well, so everyone has their ego. So it's like our company is like United Nations. We have people from all over the world, because there are very, very few local chiropractors, maybe less than 10 in the whole like 6 million population. So we are getting people from all over the world, and having that melting pot of different culture and values and religion and races, and even the schools that they graduate from practice differently. So yeah, so that initial breaking period of every new professional that joins us, that's really the pivotal moment to see if they are able to fit in or not. And then you have the challenge of 6 months later, are they still practicing the same way that we've taught them? Yeah. So really, I mean, that is currently still very much like works in progress, but we use like our SOP, and I think now with AI as well, it helps certain metrics to measure, because we did invest in a robust ERP system as well for our clinics, so that there are like different metrics to measure if they are following or not.
That's awesome. How did you put together those SOPs? Did you hire somebody on? Did you just do your own research and learning? How'd you build those out?
We did it on our own.
Late nights.
You're like, we didn't hire anybody. Yeah, we did that on our own.
No, yeah.
A lot of late nights.
Yeah.
But I mean,
And
obviously, the team chipped in as well. I mean,
Sure.
everybody chipped in, but because we are also constantly changing our own SOP.
I was going to say it's a living, breathing process. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I think that's one of the things that always keeps us like at the forefront like of our competitors as well. Like we are always finding new ways to innovate and to level up our practice. Yeah,
that's great. One more question in this kind of scaling, growing phase. Did you guys ever have to take funding, or were you able to cash flow this business throughout? Did you ever go and raise and get professional money, or how'd you do that?
No, we're blessed enough. We bootstrapped this from the start, and from the profits that we got, we just reinvested. We are constantly reinvesting. Yeah. So it's still fully 100% owned by us. Yeah.
Well done, man. That's really, really awesome. There's not a lot of people that can say that, especially who start it from scratch. That's really, really neat. So what are some, if you guys, I want to touch specifically on, it sounds like a big piece of what you guys were needing to learn to do well was, because I was going to mention this earlier when we talked about the SOPs, was like, it sounds like getting the right people in the right seats, doing the right thing within your organization, and then creating these standards of practice for each of those roles. But how were you doing that first part correctly? How were you making sure you hired the right people? Were you doing some kind of culture index, like a test that people took to make sure people fit? Like how were you getting the right people in the right seats to do the right roles?
I think it really took like just years of practice, trial and error as well. And a lot of times, I mean, when people come for interviews, they put their best face forward, right? And then you never know what you're going to get a couple of months down the road. So really, like, it's just putting our faith into our own, how do you call that? Like intuition as well, like about the person. Yeah. And check off certain questions, triggering questions to see if they fit into our culture. Like really mostly cultural questions rather than hard skills.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cultural fit was very important.
Yeah, that makes sense. And there's, I mean, people's interview selves are so different than their day-to-day like operating selves, and that can be really tricky to see through. As you guys operate your business and you guys are continuing to grow and continuing to learn and adjust, adapt, evolve with all the things we've been talking about, what's something you guys continue to come back to as just an absolute truth in your business that continues to play itself out over and over and prove itself over and over, that you're like, this is true. This seems to always be true about operating our business?
For me, because I'm on the clinical side, and for me, it's just all about just ensuring that patient, when they come in, they're not feeling well, so they might be downtrodden, they might be having some stress from the day, or all these things. So it's about making sure that, or allowing that person to, when they leave the clinic, they're happy, they're feeling good, they're moving better. And so it's not just about talking about it on a brochure or on our website or Instagram. It's always just, I hate to say it, but just helping that patient discover themselves through their health, that, it's a temporary thing. We just need to make better decisions in terms of how to take care of ourselves. So I try to instill that value in all of my, practitioners, that we're here to serve them. We're here to help them move better so that they can express their best life through their health. Yeah. So that's just been true to me. Like, no matter how much hardship that we've gone through, where I feel like, well, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? It just really just goes back to, serving every patient that comes through our door.
Yeah, so for me, even though I'm in charge of the business side of things, but it's also being patient-centric. I think that's really always been what
Number one.
Yeah, when we get swayed, oh, we should do this and that, the latest thing, this is the latest trend and stuff. But then it's like we always pull ourselves back and like, okay, but is this what's best for the patient? So it's like the patient is in the middle, and then everything that we do it's all for the patient, and that's kind of always centered us, like what's best for the patient. And then we find like the new initiatives around that, rather than finding a new initiative and how can we fit this into the patient.
I love that, because I heard the same thing from both of you in two different ways. Patient at the center, that like the service, the patient, how they're feeling, their wellness, their health, and you guys from a business standpoint and from an actual clinical standpoint are doing the same thing and aligned to that. And I'm sure that really shows to everybody that walks through your door. What would you give? So, like I said, a lot of people that are listening are actively establishing their companies or scaling their companies and growing. And so, what would be a word of caution that you could provide or offer to entrepreneurs who are in that phase, who are actively scaling? Maybe they're at that 3 to 4 clinic moment of their business, and they're trying to push past that and get past that hurdle. What's a word of caution you could share for people in that moment in their business?
Right off the bat, take a step back. Really know what you want, and oftentimes adding, whether or not it's a new another clinic or another product or whatever, it may look good in terms of ROIs or in the financials, but there's a lot of things that goes behind that for you to be able to achieve that first. And so really, really knowing what you want ultimately, because it's not about padding, the financials on it. It's just about, because it's going to require you time and a lot of emotional things. Like I pray for everyone to have good, positive, emotional experiences, but that's further from the truth sometimes. So just really stepping back and really outlining, why do you really want, to scale? Why do you want to, and also it takes this, knowing where you're at. Are you, is this, so that you know where to go forward. And it's not just about forward thinking, which is great, but you have to know what you want.
Yeah, I echo the same sentiments on the why portion.
Mm-hmm.
So it's you need to know why you're doing this. Otherwise, every day is just going to be a struggle.
Yeah.
And what is your ultimate plan? Are you building it for legacy purposes, for succession planning, or to exit? So once you have that goal in mind, then you can work towards it.
I really like that. I mean, you're saying, what ultimately is my purpose, is the core value to this business, what anchoring to that, and then answering the question of, do I want to scale with that in mind? Like, is it serving that end? Is it serving that purpose? Would scaling do that, or would scaling not? I think it's a really good place to start.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you guys, when you speak with other entrepreneurs, we met at a conference for entrepreneurs. You guys are kind of in that community. You are, talking with other entrepreneurs in different areas of your life, a part of different organizations and things. What is a question that you guys find that you are asked the most by other entrepreneurs, looking at you guys who are out there doing it, building your business, growing, having success? What do you find that people ask you the most? And then what's a question that you find people not asking, but they should be?
I think the one that most people ask us the most is, how do you guys work together as a couple?
Totally. Yeah.
I think that's,
like,
that's
I could never
something
work with my spouse. Yeah.
Especially in Asia. Yeah, it's not so common. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's a question that I get asked the most. I'm not sure about you.
Yeah. I think it's very fashionable in the startup world. Like, so is it scalable? Or is it like, what's your multiples? And if you do this, will you be at a different multiple, and will you exit then? Going back to the previous question, it's the thing is that we've had that opportunity, and it's hard for me to answer that question because, what do you call this? I get asked more about financials because based on how it looks, but less about the purpose. Like, we're in the service industry. Yeah. So, that's why I said fundamentals. Yeah. So I get that asked a lot, and multiple times, all these disconnects. So that's pretty much what I get.
Yeah. No, that makes, if I'm hearing you right, Mark, you're saying that like people are asking often about, oh wow, you're growing to these multiple occasions, and how are you guys doing that, and what kind of numbers did it take to do that, and what kind of numbers are you getting, where could you exit, when you're saying they need to be asking more about like, how are you servicing these people so well that you can scale them, more people are coming back. I mean, starting with that and saying how are you doing, just like what you said, of making sure that people are leaving in a better state of mental and physical health than when they came in. And that's a question you need to be hearing more, but you don't. That makes sense to me, that people don't first go to that. All right, so either one of you could answer this or both, but imagine that you guys woke up at the start of your career. You somehow are able to retain all the knowledge and experience that you have now, but you're back at the beginning. How do you spend that first week of your fresh start? What do you start with? Where do you start? It's a tough question.
Yeah.
It is a loaded question.
Yes.
Knowing what we know. I don't know. I think there's something that we often question ourselves when we go through difficult times. And then when we eventually get over that hurdle, and then we're like, oh, how did we do it back then? Yeah, how do we work like 14 hours a day? And like, I was like breastfeeding my baby and renovating, and literally like on the phone while I was delivering.
Oh my goodness.
Literally on the phone with my contractors while I was in delivering my baby. So I don't know, maybe.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I take all those ups and downs, and thinking about your question, I gotta be very frank with you. I'll probably sleep in as much as I can. And
Nice.
regain my peace and clarity a little bit. Even more with myself. But I honestly, I wouldn't really. I think after a couple of days, I probably will go at it again.
Yeah.
But to be honest, if knowing what we know now, I don't know if I have the courage to even do it all over again.
Right.
Because I went into it not knowing that we're gonna, go
Blind
through all
ignorance.
this, like not knowing if it's a horrible dream. To wake
right,
up and retain all that knowledge.
Yeah,
That's right.
I think she can speak from that, Brandon, because she did shield me. I did from the financials and all the business executions. Yeah, so I really commend my wife for that.
Yeah, and I mean, you said it, Mark. You're not blind to this. You said it, that like you really have to give credit to your wife. But man, what a gift to be able to say, all right, my gift is this clinically. Like this is what I can do. There's so many other aspects to the business that could bog me down, that I'd have to go learn, that maybe I wouldn't be gifted at. But my wife is here to do that, and so I can just do what I do, like do what I do best. And that's an amazing gift that most people don't get. Most people early on are doing it on their own, and they are trying to figure it all out and not able to just do the things they're gifted at and really focus that skill and hone that ability. It's awesome. I would love to hear from both of you guys on this one. This is my last question for you, is what would be one tool or quote or book, just one resource that you guys have found indispensable to you, either personally or professionally over the years?
I think for me personally, it's the serenity prayer. I think that's something that always gets me through. Yeah, it's having that serenity to accept the things you cannot change, and the courage to change the things that you can, but the wisdom, to know the difference. I think that the part is the wisdom, because a lot of times people just give up too soon, and they're like, oh, I can't change this. I'm just gonna accept it is what it is. Yeah, that's how the cookie crumbles. But a lot of times that I feel like it's. For me, when somebody tells me that certain things cannot be done, that's when I get super motivated, and I just want, like, every being in my body wants challenge that.
For me, it's the Alchemist, and I don't the Alchemist, because it was one of the first books that I read, and I really, really treasured every part of the story on the journey, and I resonate with a lot of things that he went through, and professionally, and when I was growing up too, to lead me to where I am today with my wife. So yeah, but sometimes, when you spend too much time in a place, you forget, the beauty that you have. So that's why it really touches me.
That's really great. I love that. I love both those answers. Well, Gina and Marc, this was really, really great. I love your guys' story for a lot of reasons, but really neat to hear from a husband and wife team. I haven't had that on the show yet. And to hear how you guys navigated that and grew and continued to keep the people you were serving at the center of your business, the center of what you were doing, that's really, really neat. Sounds like you guys done a phenomenal job of that. And the way you guys are growing and maintaining as a company, as an organization, shows that and proves that. I love that. So thank you for sharing all that with my audience, with my listeners. I know that was really valuable.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah.
Of course. All right. You guys take care. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you guys enjoyed the show, leaving a review is the best way to help others find it, second only to sharing it directly with your friends and family. Thanks so much for helping get the word out. Hit me up at brandon@readysetstartuppod.com if you have additional questions about a topic I covered, have suggestions about another area you'd like to see me dig into, or just want to say hi. Please reach out. I'd love to get in touch. Keep imagining, keep creating, keep inspiring your spheres of influence with what you're passionate about. The world may just need that dream that's in your head. See you next time.